Mii Brawler has definitely been one of the more lucky characters in the last patch, receiving buffs to 3 of his special moves. But how do these buffs really affect him? Are his previously unusable moves now viable in more matchups? How do the buffs influence his place on the tier list? This video aims to explain what the changes actually mean and how Brawler's meta will change. Let's go! We're gonna start by discussing the changes to Flashing Mach Punch, neutral special 2. The horizontal range of the move has been increased quite a bit compared to its overall range, which has a few effects on multiple situations. For example, FMP has definitely improved as an out-of-shield option. Many tilts and aerials, which would have been safe before, are now punishable by a jump-cancelled FMP out of shield, which will make it a lot more threatening in matchups against sword characters like Lucina or Croy. But it didn't just improve as an out-of-shield option. Before the patch, weak neutral air into FMP was a pretty difficult confirm, especially on DI out. But now, with proper spacing, many more characters are threatened to get hit by this setup. A few notes regarding the combo. If the opponent manages to react in time, DI out is usually their best option. No DI is relatively easy to catch without having to run very far, and DI up can also get covered by simply jumping higher before inputting FMP. This is great because the alternative for non-floaties is to get put in a tech chase scenario. And that, especially after the buffs, is pretty much a 50-50 between death and safety. Better talk about that once we get to Onslaught. So, in conclusion, FMP will now be more useful in matchups against mid-range characters as an out-of-shield option, and is a more consistent kill confirm overall. Does that mean it should be used over shot put now? Well, it depends on your playstyle, your other specials and on the matchup. It still has the same flaws as before, meaning it's very punishable on shield, and it sometimes doesn't work. But, in my opinion, FMP is now an option just as strong as shot put, if properly used. Buff number 2 is Onslaught, side special 1. Everyone who's ever talked to me knows that I, to say it nicely, don't really like Onslaught. The main reason that I and many others have considered Onslaught as Brawler's worst special move is its terrible risk-reward ratio. Before the patch, the only situation where Onslaught was consistently better than Up Smash was when you had Rage, because, for everyone who doesn't know, Onslaught has a built-in aura mechanic, which makes the move scale even better with Rage than usual. The fundamental problem, however, is that Onslaught is really unsafe on whiff or shield. Once you had enough rage to kill the opponent at reasonable percentages, you were also guaranteed to be dead if you were to miss the move. And if you didn't have any rage, the move wouldn't kill at a percent where Up Smash would do the same thing, but better. This risk-reward ratio shifted after knockback and damage have been buffed in the patch. And that changes two important situations. First one is Onslaught as a comeback mechanic. If you ever need to get a comeback at high percent, Onslaught will now kill heavyweights earlier than forward smash would. The second one is Onslaught as a kill move, while Brawler himself is not at risk of dying. Before the patch, if you ever lost your stock first, there wasn't really a reason to use Onslaught when FMP or Up Smash would do the same trick. Now Onslaught will be able to kill heavyweights at percents Up Smash could only dream of, even without rage. Regarding that aspect, I want to elaborate on something I noted with FMP. FMP as well as Onslaught are now insanely busted as tech chase tools. Let me explain. At around 100 to 110%, weak Nair will start setting up into tech chases. As mentioned before, if the opponent DIs up to avoid a forced tech, they easily get caught by FMP, or even a back air for a kill at higher percents. If they do tech however, FMP and Onslaught can always cover 3 out of 4 options with the same exact inputs. What you need to do is simply run after your opponent, keep running no matter what happens, and input a jump FMP. If your opponent techs in place or misses a tech, you will push them with you. If they tech away, thanks to the horizontal range buff, you can cover pretty much every character's roll with the same input timing. The only option not covered is tech in, making this basically a 50-50 kill confirm. Onslaught can do the exact same thing, but even better. It will pretty much always kill once a tech is forced and also work at low percents. And this is where Onslaught can shine as a comeback move. At around 50%, A strong neutral air can also force a tag situation. If the opponent tags in place or misses their attack, a forward smash will already be able to kill mid and lightweights, but not heavyweights. If you have rage though, even heavyweights will die in 3 or 4 cases to max power onslaught. Finally, aerial onslaught has also significantly increased in kill power. At max rage, characters will now die at 70 to 80% and without any rage at 120%. The only reason I mention this is because of footstool into onslaught, which works on pretty much all characters and is a frame 4 out of shield option, so better than up smash in most cases. After hearing all these positive things about onslaught, the move might seem like a pretty decent option now. But we can't forget about its flaws. It is still very slow, without any useful combos into it. It is easily punishable by every character in the game. It doesn't help you recover, it doesn't help you in neutral, and it sometimes doesn't even work. The reward for hitting it has increased quite a bit, but the risk is still extremely high, almost as high as not being subscribed to my channel. So should you ever use onslaught? My answer for now is, you can, but only in the right circumstances. First, the opponent should be a heavy or super heavyweight. Against anyone else, it simply isn't worth using when you have plenty other options to kill them. Second, I strongly recommend playing Thrupper and maybe Helikick in combination. Once your opponent gets scared of onslaught, you need to get a decent reward out of grabs, which you simply don't have with SAK. Third, you should never use it in neutral, but only in advantage and after footstools out of shield. If these conditions are met, then in my opinion, onslaught can play a strong role in your moveset. In any other case, I would still never recommend the move simply due to its very high risk factor. The last buffed move is Head-on Assault, down special 1. Its knockback has been increased as well as its shield damage. Let's look at the knockback buff first. To put it bluntly, it still sucks. It won't kill midweights at any reasonable percent when not at ledge, and heavyweights will pretty much never die. So it definitely won't establish itself as a consistent or early kill option. What is important however is its shield damage. A grounded Head-on Assault is now able to destroy any character's full shield, which sounds nice but is still kinda bad. A grounded Head-on Assault can very easily be parried or rolled out of, so this is pretty much only a gimmick. Aerial Head-on Assault unfortunately also doesn't break a full shield. Damaged shields are now in a lot more danger though, which is nice. In other words, Head-on Assault may be improved as a landing mix-up against an opponent with a damaged shield. In any other case, it's as bad as always. It still doesn't work on platforms, it still won't work against airborne opponents, or just doesn't work randomly. So would I recommend it in any matchups? Definitely no. Head-on Assault's viability has, in my opinion, not changed in the slightest. Now that we know what changed, what does all this mean for Mii Brawler on the tier list? Well, of all his weaknesses, the only thing that has been improved is his kill power. But to feel any of that, you would have to play very specific loadouts. A knockback buff to his back air in comparison would have been a huge difference, as he could feel it in any match at any given time. So when we look at only one moveset, the only thing changing are specific matchups. For example, if used correctly, thanks to the onslaught buff, the Bowser matchup might have improved from even, in my opinion, to slightly winning for Brawler. Thanks to neutral air FMP, the Rosalina matchup might have become slightly easier. Does it change his place on the tier list? In my opinion, only by maybe 2 or 3 spots at most. But does it make him an even cooler character with even more cheese than before? Absolutely. Do you agree? Do you think Onslaught is now Brawler's most broken special? I would love to hear your opinion in the comments, and maybe leave a like to help me and the channel out. Until the next video.